Hello, you're watching The Mainstream, formerly known as CIO News. I'm Khushbu Soni, the founder and chief editor of The Mainstream. Today, we're going to be talking about securing the future, building a resilient cybersecurity framework for India's critical infrastructure. And I'm very honored to invite our guests today on this interview. They need no introduction, but I'm going to take a few seconds to do that. We have Mr. Jitendra Bharadwaj, the Chief Information Security Officer and Business Head Cybersecurity at Tata Advanced Systems Limited. Mr. Bharadwaj has demonstrated history of working in the information technology and services industry, currently having additional responsibility of building cybersecurity business globally and managing US geo delivery as a global delivery head. Mr. Bharadwaj is skilled in digital transformation, large program management, sales management, global delivery, practice management, pre-sales, and business relationship management. He's a strong information technology professional with a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD focused in business management. Mr. Bharadwaj, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Khushbu.
Fantastic. We also have Vaibhav Dutta. He's the Global Head of Products and Services for Cybersecurity at Tata Communication. Vaibhav is a dynamic leader spearheading products and strategic initiatives in cybersecurity for Tata Communications. His expertise spans product development, business development, analyst relations, market exploration, and driving innovations in managed security services. He's a visionary in aligning security trends with business strategy. Vaibhav excels in competitive analysis, alliance management, in introducing cutting-edge technologies framework. Pleasure to have you, Vaibhav.
Thank you, Khushbu. Thank you so very much.
Fantastic. Today we're going to be talking about building a resilient cybersecurity framework for India's critical infrastructure. And I believe it is a very important topic, is also because I think we have seen a rise in cybercrime, especially in India. This year, it was almost 500 million plus attacks just in the first quarter of 2024. And I think there was a rise of 46% to that number in second quarter of 2024. So I believe it is very important to talk about it. And both of you have been working in this space extensively, and would love to hear, your thoughts on how do we see the years to come, right? So I wanted to start with actually putting across my first question, Mr. Bharadwaj, from your perspective. What are the pressing challenges in cybersecurity for India's critical infrastructure? How do you see that evolving in the years to come as well?
So thank you, Khushbu. So I'll take a step back in this to answer this question. Before COVID, cybersecurity was there, but not so much prominent. Okay. Then come the COVID, then come the basically work from home scenario, and suddenly we see the rise in the cyber attacks exponentially. Yeah. Okay. In one of my previous organization, we used to have around 800 attacks in a month on our domain in January 2020. Come May, after COVID has come, I guess it become 1.5 million. So see the rise which have been there. So that is one part of the story. Then initially it was the IT infrastructure which is getting basically attacked by the cyber criminals, and they wanted to exploit that basically vulnerabilities there. Subsequently, we see that the OT infrastructure, when we talk about the critical infrastructure, it is primarily the OT infrastructure, IoT and OAT. IoT and the OT infrastructure we are talking about here. So now we see the OT infrastructure is also getting attacked. They are exploiting the vulnerabilities in this infrastructure which is there. That is the one aspect. Second aspect of the basically the attack surface which you are seeing. So it is getting expanded from IT to IT plus OT. I am specific to the critical infrastructure I am talking about here. Then we see this critical infrastructure, by definition it is a critical infrastructure for the country, and looking at the geopolitical situation, so there is a lot of basically pressure on that. Yeah. We see all the wars, like we see Ukraine-Russia war and the Middle East what is happening. And if you see the Russia-Ukraine war, most of the war is won on the cyber warfare. Yeah. It is offensive as well as defensive. So this is another piece which comes. So when we say cyber physical attack surface has increased, there are nation actors or the state actors which are adversary to the nation which is there. they're also basically looking at this kind of infrastructure attack and exploit that so that they can basically impact the nation economy. So this is another aspect which have been there. Third, then the AI. We have seen the AI in the last few years come back like anything. AI was there for last 15 years, but after Gen AI, we see, I think, the adoption of AI with the most of the organization for that matter. So using of the AI in cyber attacks and basically the resilience part which have been there is on the rise. So when we see all these things, it is going to get complex. And I just wanted to complicate further. It is a human element. Now it's a work from home scenario after the when we see the after COVID, still organization is still not come back to the office. They still work from home. So we see a complex scenario in the next 5 to 10 years, which has got on one hand OT, IT, IoT, which is there. Then other side AI, which is there, and then we look at the human piece which have been there. So it become a complex piece which have been there. So we see, I think, a complex piece, and it need to be have a integrated approach. It will not be one approach where you can only protect your IT infrastructure. You need to protect everything. It is to be synchronized, and then when you see all these things, there is a lot of data which is available. Now, what is the actionable data? For that, basically the data analytics come into play. So we see a complex scenario, I think, going forward.
Right, absolutely. The very fact that you mentioned that, going forward, they say it is not going to be machine wars, it's going to be cyber wars. And we've started seeing as well, right, I think all the recent attacks that have happened in India and in Israel, there has been a lot of, critical infrastructure that were compromised. And I wanted to also understand, how do you see a technology service provider playing a role? We spoke about a lot of areas where, there are common challenges, right, from human elements to OT security to, data security. So how do you see technology providers playing a role in this?
So I think any IT infrastructure, we talk about people, process, technology. So PPT we call it. It is not the PowerPoint, but the people, process, technology, which you say. I think technology service providers are now going beyond the technology also. Like human behavior, okay. If you use the technology, when we say the technology service provider, when we do the SOC, I think any organization which is SOC, they got a UABA, where there is a user analytics and behavior analytics, which they look into that. So those kind of things are coming into picture. And most of the technology service providers nowadays use the AI, because that has to be used, kind of this thing, so that your response time can get reduced. So if you use technology in your cybersecurity posture, that improves all the three places which have been there. Not only the people, okay. Technology service providers are helping right now to have the user training basically, okay, because cybersecurity training or awareness is not a one-time exercise, okay, when the people join. It is a continuous, because there are new threats which are coming up in the market. How you basically tell your employees that these are new things which are coming, how you need to prepare yourself. And then you need to create a basically scenario. One is a classroom training, and we all know that we don't learn from that much. You need to give hands on them. So technology help in that also. Okay, so one hand they address the human side and the people side which have been there. Processes, the more you use the technology, okay, the process get improved. Okay, so by using of AI, you can improve your processes, your response time which have been there. So having said that, I think it's a collaboration, okay, and it has to be a very, very tight collaboration, because this scenario, the cyber scenario is changing so fast, okay. So you need to have very, very close collaboration with your technology service provider, so that along with them you can respond to any threat which is happening to your organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to come to you, Vaibhav, and ask you a question. We heard Mr. Bharadwaj mention. What are your opinions on, the increasing geopolitical risk and the advent of technologies like AI, right? How do you see the cybersecurity domain rapidly evolving?
Yeah, I'll take a step back, Khushbu, and talk about first the critical infrastructure. Dr. Bharadwaj mentioned about the critical infrastructure, the significance of it, especially if we look at the critical infrastructure for any country. It constitutes of its financial services, it constitutes of its transportation services, it constitutes of its aero defense as well as utility services, healthcare services. All these are critical infrastructure for any country to sustain, right? And of late, if you see a couple of years, down the line, we have seen an expansion in the targeted geopolitical attack targeting our healthcare organization. So many, attacks have happened, right? Similarly, if you see the geopolitical situation, which is today running across the Middle East, across Ukraine, Russia, the cyber attacks have increased over a period of time. It's exponential right now. I was just going through some of the articles, a couple of days ago. If you see the attacks which are now targeted on a government sites has increased. The APIs being exposed, use of denial of services just to target, and take down the government. So this is just, I believe, a start. With more and more political tensions which is scaling across the globe, I believe, this is something which is going to be a new area. In a recent survey, 86% of, most of the organizations believe that, they will be undergoing a cyber warfare.
Right.
Triggered by political, geopolitical situation. So that is what the state we are living in. And then, new technologies. Today we are talking about Gen AI, how Gen AI can be used to solve a lot of issues, right? However, if you see on the other side, there are examples of, deep fake, phishing scams which have been run by generative AI, multiple such examples which have come across. So this is just a start, I will say, just a tip of the iceberg. We are also seeing how the post-quantum days, with quantum computing coming, how will that impact? We are just talking about Gen AI because Gen AI is a hot topic. No one is talking about what will happen post-quantum because, today we see a lot of encrypted data is being stolen. Okay, with the concept that, they will be, post-quantum days, they will be able to, decrypt that data. So we are living in a tough situation. The technology is evolving. We are, catching that pace, and geopolitical is gonna definitely increase more and more cyber warfare.
Absolutely. That is so true. In fact, I read somewhere where it mentioned that by 2036, India will face a cybercrime worth of $1 trillion. I think those were some of the statistics that the research says. Mr. Bharadwaj, what security trends do you foresee in the defense and aerospace industry for the years to come?
So this industry is unique in a way. If you look at any aircraft, in any aircraft, there are 1.5 lakhs to approximately 12 lakhs components which are there. And this industry is based on the collaboration, and no organization can manufacture all the components. So you need to depend on your supplier, and there is a large number of suppliers in this industry. So that is one piece. Second is particularly in India, with the focus on the Make in India concept. So there is a lot of support to the MSME market which is there. So these organizations are focused on the manufacturing. So they don't have a strong IT governance, or the IT and the cybersecurity governance for that matter. So if you see this industry, it is all interlinked. So if you're an organization which is a manufacturer, there are a lot of basically small manufacturers, supplier will be supporting it to you. Like in IT, there is a supply chain attack which is in the SolarWinds and other thing. So apart from the software supplier, there is a lot of basically cyber risks which come from this whole infrastructure. So what we see, I think going forward, it will not be on one organization which is going to protect their own infrastructure. It will be the larger ecosystem, it is the industry wide. So we may see, I think there are discussion happening, that can we have an industry specific security operation center, because it is based on the, again I say, on one hand we have got a large supplier which is there. Second, these kind of industry, aerospace and defense, are basically attacked by the enemy states also, okay, on the rogue elements, which is basically geopolitical situation which have been there. So you need to protect that, and it is a nation basically data which have been there. So there is a government which is also involved. So we see a larger collaboration. So that is the one area which we see is going to happen in this industry from the process wise. So it will be industry specific combined response to the cyber crimes. So that is one piece which we see in this industry which is there. Second, again, as I mentioned to you, there is a lot of cyber physical thing, cyber physical industry 4.0 when we talk about. There are equipments which have been there from last 30-40 years. when we talk about the OT infrastructure and they have not been patched, there are a lot of vulnerability which have been there. And when it is all integrated, so threat can come from anywhere. So how to respond to that, that is one. Then there is the APTs, which are basically attacking the nation. And in terms, nation is consist of the critical infrastructure, as I think Vaibhav mentioned earlier. Also, if you see all the infrastructure, not on the aerospace and defense, but the healthcare and everything, we see in the instance which is there. So I think you need to protect yourself against them. And in this industry, there is another, I'm sure you must be hearing, the insider threat program which is there. So human element is very, very important in this element, which normally we see that. So how to look at the human behavior to predict if there is any crime going to happen on the cyber side, which is there. Most of the, now it's everything in the data. There is no more files which are there. So these 4 or 5 trends which we see, and we need to protect, we need to create our cyber security posture, keeping that in mind.
Absolutely. Vaibhav, you've been talking to a lot of CISOs, all throughout, every day. What are some of the key trends that you've been seeing in this space?
See, as Dr. Bhardwaj mentioned, today if we see, most of the organizations are struggling to have a quick view of what their assets are today, right? The asset inventory might not be, accurate, okay? And as Dr. Bhardwaj mentioned, that the basic challenge in some of the critical infrastructure industries such as aero defense or any other manufacturing, oil and gases, the visibility of the assets, and those assets are not IT assets; those are the OT assets. As the untouched assets, or the assets which have been there into the system and lying there, right? Because they are so reliable. Okay? So they don't need to be touched on a regular basis, right? But what it introduced, with IT and OT convergence, it introduced that those attacks, are vulnerable because they have not been patched over a period of time. They are known for their availability, they are known for their reliability, but they are vulnerable, right?
Right.
So how do we, ensure that, we have a complete asset discovery, and we ensure that, those systems which have not been touched needs also to be patched, right?
Right.
Eventually, it will take, someone to build that level of resilience in most of the organizations to come up with that strategy. But I believe, those are the trends, which are very, very significant. How to have a complete asset discovery across your IT, OT, cloud, digital landscape, and then identify what your vulnerabilities are and prioritize your vulnerabilities, right? Because eventually, it's all about hygiene. If we are able to maintain that security hygiene, we will be able to cater to 90%, right? There will be human elements, right? There will be, insider, attacks. But if we are able to maintain that hygiene element, we should be able to cater to many issues which we are addressing today.
Got it. Mr. Bhardwaj, what message would you give to enterprises investing into, cybersecurity for the critical sectors?
So, Khushbu, I think I'll pick up from what Vaibhav mentioned. I think it is easier said than done, the asset discovery. I think if you know what all your assets are, when you say IT, OT and IoT for that matter, because we use nowadays biometric system also. So that is also a key component in the aerospace and defense industry, okay. Any data is critical in that matter. So I think if you, to start with, you need to have a comprehensive plan, okay, which goes without saying, which should not only cover your IT and OT and IoT assets, it should know the processes which are there, okay. It should also look at the resilience part, because in our industry, not only the protecting our assets, it is our partner's asset, which is supply chain, which is also important. So if we need to extend our basically program to them, we need to do that, and we have been doing that thing. So that is one thing, because we need to protect complete supply chain. So that is a one piece. So your cyber security program should cover that. That is one. Then important piece is recovery.
Right.
Okay. In our case, how to react to it, how to basically recover from all these attacks which have been there. So that is the important piece which should be part of the program. And third important, again, I always come back to the human. You can have best of the technology, you can have best of the processes, but if your people are not aware, that is, I think, lacking. And most of the organization look at any attrition rate, 10%, 20%, there are new people who are joining. And as I mentioned to you, cyber crime landscape is changing so fast, new basically ways of cyber crimes are coming up right now. So how we can basically train them on continuous basis? It is not only training. We need to give them the real life scenario, because unless you go through that, you don't realize that kind of a thing which have been there. So if we can encompass a program with that, it is always a dynamic thing, to be honest. It is not a static thing. It is like you should be reviewing daily kind of a thing, what is happening there. So I think that plan is there, and the execution piece, I think that is there. So execution means your team should also be trained on that.
Yeah.
And then last, you need to be in touch with the technology service providers, what is happening in the industry, what are the new tools which are coming up which can make it more efficient, because in this scenario the response time is very, very critical.
Right.
And if there is normally if you see in the ransomware attack, once they get into your system, it takes time to basically take that attack happen. If you can address that and you can pick it up before, I think, attack happen. So for that you need to look at what is happening in the technology and how we can bring the technology to address those pieces which have been there. So combine these 4 pieces, I think, as of now I can see, but having said that, when the quantum comes, things will change. So I think that's the best I can see, and I can tell you about that as well.
True. In fact, when you actually mentioned about the attrition rate and new people joining every day, right, in larger organizations, with that, I was thinking that if there's someone who's newly joined and then there is a scam email that has come, as a new joinee, you've not gone through the cybersecurity training yet. I mean, you are the weakest link for any organization. I mean, and it just got me to thinking, I mean, this should become the first day training before any systems or any access is given to any employees within the organization. So it just kind of struck me.
Very interesting piece, and it happens, I think, every time. If you are a CISO of an organization, normally I can share my experience. So we don't give the login ID, password, access to the IT system till the time they clear the cybersecurity certification. It is certification. It is not the training which we are talking about. We are talking about the basically certification. You had done the training, you are given the test which have been there. But on the other hand, HR will come to you and they say, because the people are not able to not give the access, they are not able to work on that.
Yeah.
So there's always a challenge, and very interesting point which you talk about. Yes, but the point is that you don't let people drive the vehicle if they don't have a driving license.
Exactly.
You need to go with this analogy that till the time they don't clear, you can't give the access to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vaibhav, what has been your role as an individual and as an organization, to counter all these cyber threats that we've been hearing and the challenges that we've been seeing in the sector, specifically in the critical infrastructure space, if you can help us get that?
See, the role, which I play is same with, what Tata Communication, I'll talk from Tata Communication. Within the organization, what we are doing, we are helping customers to identify, first of all, what their assets are, The discovery part is very, very critical, as I mentioned. Then, as Dr. Bharadwaj mentioned, how do I take a containment exercise, right? So implement zero trust, for network access, whether it's third party who are accessing your critical infrastructure, how do you enable their access and control their access? Implement, zero trust with microsegmentation, right? Limit so I can limit and contain the attack, the frequency as well as the limit of the exposure. And then the supply chain piece, which Dr. Bharadwaj mentioned, is very, very critical. How do I ensure that all my supply chain, vendors, whatever their vendors are, we have seen Avanti, we have seen SolarWinds, and we have seen so many examples, right, of how one organization platform is getting breached because of the, vulnerabilities existing in these, software supply chain and third-party supply chain whatsoever. So how do I ensure that these systems are continuously being evaluated, being patched, and then introduce a program of awareness, right? I am of an opinion, you make your individuals give so many tests, right, on cybersecurity, and what is the program? They will fail, they will pass, that is how it is. But they not imbibe that as a culture, right? It's a cultural problem. It's a cultural shift, right? And a culture can only be changed, if you make them more exciting, right? So all these, programs needs to be in a gamification mode, right? In a competition mode, so that, they inculcate that into their culture. Once they are culturally, security sound, I believe we will be able to cater to a lot of, the the challenges which we are facing from the users, or the people perspective.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I think this has been a great conversation and really, insightful pointers. I'm sure viewers are going to be, getting a lot of insights through all the, experiences that you've been having in the cybersecurity space. Any last thoughts that you would like to add for our viewers, both from the C-suite's perspective, from the industry, also from a normal common man who's a user? Anything that you would like to add?
I think there are a lot of do's and don'ts are already available on the web. We keep on getting all these things which are there. One thing which I personally believe, for the organization perspective, I'm not coming from the common perspective, we need to, like we used to have a social distancing in the COVID area, we need to practice the digital distancing in the professional area, because the line between the work and home has been diminished. We are using the same device for the official work, we are using the same device for the personal work. So I think that is one thing which as an organization we organization need to practice that thing. That can address a lot of cybersecurity risk for that matter, because then you can put a lot of controls on your official devices. So that is one. Of course, with a new work culture, work from home, how we do that, I think that is a challenge which is there. That is one. Second, one is to be aware what is happening around as an organization, what is happening in the industry, what is happening globally, because attack can come from anywhere nowadays. It is not limited to only to the normal threat actors which are there. It can come from anywhere, and being I can be specific to the critical infrastructure, so then it becomes all the more difficult. And again, that's why I need to put a strong insider basically threat program also into place. That is one thing. To do that, I think use technology. Technology is good and bad both. So we need to use technology to the best of their use, because it helps us to basically respond fast. But of course, it is to be done in the moderate way. You can't have anything unregulated which is there. You test it out and then implement this. So I think those are 3-4 things which can be used. As a common person, I think again, just be aware what is happening in the around you, what are the common crimes which are happening, because as I mentioned to you, if an individual get compromised, it can also get compromise your organization also, because you're using the same mobile or the same device for that matter. That's I think which can talk about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. Anything that you'd like to add, Vaibhav?
He already said many things. I will just say, as an organization needs to embrace technology, embrace innovation, be watchful, be careful. As a user, utilize the technology to an extent, you are not invading your privacy and letting others invade your privacy. So be watchful, be careful. I believe, we should be good.
Fantastic. I think this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining the Mainstream interview chat series. And I look forward to having many more conversations.
Perfect. Thank you, Khushbu.
Thank you so much, Khushbu. And thank you, Vaibhav.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.